We have been talking about enthusiasm in heaven, or enthusiasm for getting into heaven, increasing that eagerness, that motivation of wanting to have success in the hereafter, wanting to make it in the hereafter successfully. That has been the topic of our discussions these past few nights, and inshallah will be the topic of my discussion until the 15th of the month of Ramadan, when inshallah I will switch the podium. I'll give the podium to my respected brother, who is a very knowledgeable man, Sheikh Mahdy Dardashty. Inshallah, you'll be benefited from his presence and his words. We've been talking about this, and we out better. Is it better? Is it clear now? Okay, great. So, because there's no monitor, I don't hear it. So I think you guys are not hearing it too. We've been talking about the enthusiasm for heaven, and we talked about the different pillars of Iman, and one of them was sabr and patience. And then we delved into the matter. We said 4 categories of sabr, and then the very first one was shawq, was eagerness, was enthusiasm, right? Insan is motivated by enthusiasm. We are motivated by that. We are motivated by kindness. There's a beautiful term in the Munajat of Sha'baniyah, which is written by, does anyone know who is the author of Munajat Sha'baniyah? Amir al-Mu'mini. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. 12th Imam, Dua al-Iftitah is belonging to 12th Imam. Very good point. So Munajat Sha'baniyah is one of the greatest munajats and du'as that all of the Imams were reciting it. All of our Imams were, it was their habit to recite Munajat Sha'baniyah. And even though the name of it is Sha'baniyah, it's not limited to be recited in the month of Sha'ban. So hence you can definitely read it in the other nights, especially these nights. It says, "Oh Allah, I do not have any power, any motivation, any energy to leave behind my habits of sinning, except if you wake me up by your kindness. إِلَّا أَنْ أَيْغَذْتَنِي بِمَحَبَّتِكَ." Insan is motivated by enthusiasm. Insan is motivated by success. Insan is motivated by kindness, right? That's one of the reasons why we can bear patience, right? If you're just motivated by fear constantly, then you're just failing into all the aspects of life. Okay, I'm scared of this. In fact, having fear of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not something that Deen encourages you to have. In fact, in a very negative way, in the most frank language, Islam denounces the fear of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi says, he says, "I swear by God, in my entire life, I was not scared of anyone but Allah for even a tiny bit of a second. For even 1 second, I was not scared of anyone else." Why? Because if you're not scared of God, if you're scared of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning that if you're scared of disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you have the fear of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what would you do? You become very cautious, right? أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. The true friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do not have these 2 negative characteristics. They do not have fear, right? And they do not have sorrow. What is sorrow referring to? Regrets of the past. I've made mistakes in the past, in my life, and I regret them. I wish that day I got angry, I hadn't had said that word to my father, to my children, to my spouse, right? I did that action based on anger. Oh, they went to one of the prisons and they talked to many of these criminals. They said, "Do you have any regrets?" They said, "Yeah. What we did and caused us to be in here, most of them, We're saying it was a decision that we take spontaneously and we couldn't control our anger. I ended up killing someone, murdering someone, doing this, doing that. Sometimes it's and shaitan likes that because you push to the edges of the borderlines and then you do something, right? If you have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the fear of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will leave your heart, because what you have done in the past, you have been cautious about the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What you have done in the past, you're sure that you have acted upon your duty. You did what the best of knowledge that you had about something, you acted upon that, right? And about the future, because sorrow belongs to the past, fear belongs to future. Oh, what's going to happen to the job and employment rate? What's going to happen to my house? What's going to happen to my kids? What's going to happen to this and that? Right? But someone who has tawakkul and reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they also do not suffer from the future and from the fear that is in regards to their future, right? The true friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do not have these two characteristics. They do not have khawf, they do not have fear, right? So let's come back. Being driven, being motivated by enthusiasm, and especially the enthusiasm for being successful in the hereafter, is the key point that keeps us to be able to bear patience in the calamities, in the difficulties, in the times of tests, in the hardships of the life of this dunya. One of the benefits of sabr is what? One benefit of patience is this. Patience is initially difficult, right? You have to, when you're 13 years old, 14 years old, doing your salat is difficult. I know that. Wearing hijab while you're in the earliest stages of taklif is difficult. But once that becomes a moral virtue, that is a habit, that is a second nature. We call it second nature, meaning that it is instinctive, right? You don't have to think of it. It becomes part of you. It becomes part of your identity. Then it gets to the point that it becomes easy. For example, if you ask the senior sisters in our community to walk out without hijab, that is adab for them. That is difficult for them. That's like a torture for them. If you ask the respected senior members of our community, from the brothers, to stop your salat from now on, don't pray anymore, that becomes a regret for them. Oh, I can't do that. That's a torture for them. The best way to torture them is this. There's a sister who was a reporter at one of the TV stations. Her name was Sister Marzia Hashemi. She's American. She's African American. She's Muslim, and she's a journalist. She was taken under arrest as a key witness to a case, a legal case, and then she was in custody. And she said, in order to torture me, they said they didn't allow me to wear my scarf for a few days. And it was the biggest torture for me. And when they wanted to give me food, they gave me pork. Oh, if you're in danger, if your life is in danger, you can eat something that is even illegal, that is forbidden. If your life is dependent on eating that, and you're suffering from hunger to the extent that you will die if you do not consume food, it's okay to take as much as it lets you survive, right? It's called aklimate in fiqh, in jurisprudence. She says that the most difficult torture for me was this. Why? Because it becomes your second nature. Patience at the beginning of it is difficult. It's initially difficult. But once you get that into your habit, into your identity, it becomes part of you, then leaving that behind becomes difficult. Once you taste the sweetness of Salatul Layl, then no one can separate you from Salatul Layl. Once you go to Karbala for the first time, then you are falling into a more serious level of love with Imam Hussein alayhi salam because you just want to go back again. Now you know what is the meaning of life. And abandoning those good virtues becomes something difficult. So that is the quality, one of the benefits of sabr. But does anyone remember what was the final hadith that we finished our last night's lecture with? Our last night's discussion with? Does anyone remember? Bismillah. The hadith. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. I'll recite another salawat that deserves. No. This salawat is not loud enough. Please recite a loud salawat. Allah. So the hadith is up here, of course, but translation of it was very important. Inna salatallahi rakhisa fashtarawha qablan taqaluh. Right? The merchandise of Allah or the merchandise of God is on sale, is inexpensive in this life of dunya, right? And then try to purchase it before it's gone, before it's finished, before it's moved to the hereafter, because over there everything is expensive. And we made the example of the man who was crying in barzakh, in that intermediary state between dunya and akhirah, for 500 years for one of his sins. And they told him, you're forgiven, but if you were in dunya and you were making one istighfar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had forgiven you for this. 500 years with one istighfar? Come on. This dunya is an important opportunity. It's an important opportunity that you have. When it comes to the rights of people in this dunya, you're going to Karbala, give them a call. Oh, I'm going to ziyarat, forgive me. I've done your backbiting. Don't mention it. Tell them that if there's any right, forgive me. There's a beautiful story from Ayatollah Bahauddini. Ayatollah Bahauddini, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon his soul, was one of the great maraja, one of the best scholars. He had a very high status, to the extent that many believed that he was meeting our Imam of time on multiple occasions. That's how high his status was. He was an arif, a true arif. He was holding majalis of roda, or majalis of dhikr and remembrance of Abu Abdullah in his house in Qom. That house is still there. That house is still there in Qom. He says there was a man who was coming to this majlis, to this gathering, that they were not, you've seen those people who do not seem to be mentally in the healthy state, right? Therefore, we do what? We do disregard them. We do not pay attention as much to them, right? He seemed like he's not okay. But he was attending the majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He says, Ayatollah Bahauddini narrates this to one of his sons. He says this guy apparently stopped coming to the majlis, and they noticed that he had passed away, right? So Ayatollah Bahauddini said, I saw him in a dream. He said to me, Agha, there is one right that I have with you that I will not forgive you for. He says, what have I done wrong to you? He said, just because of my status, this is not a normal person. It's Ayatollah Bahauddini with such high status. It's not me. He says, Agha, everybody who was coming into the Rawda, into the majlis, into the gathering, into this program, you were getting up in respect for them. But when I was coming in, you were waving your hand to respond my salam, and you were replying my salam, but you were not standing up. Allah says, that's correct. What can I do to make up for that? He said, why did you differentiate and discriminate between the attendees of the majlis of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? Allah says, what should I do so that you forgive me? I did not mean to discriminate you, but what should I do? He said, do one complete recitation of the entire Quran, one Khatm al-Quran just for that, so that I do forgive you. Allah says, that's very difficult. All right, I'll do it. One of the other scholars who is right now one of the current Maraja in Qom, He was saying that, referring to this story, he was saying that if for one act of not standing up in replying the salam of someone else, you have to do one khatm of Quran so that he forgives you in the hereafter, then what should you do in compensation for backbiting, for cursing others? For taking the rights of people, for harassing them, for bullying them, for abusing their rights. How would you want to compensate for that? In this dunya, agha, it's easy. Don't leave it for the akhirah, because then they will take your hajj away. They will take your ziyaras of Karbala away. They will take the thawab of shedding tears for Imam Hussein alayhi salam away from you. And that's how they will set this transaction to be finalized. Don't do that. Don't do that. In this dunya, everything is easy. It's this dunya that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, every step that you take towards Karbala, the right step is equivalent to a hajj, and the left step is equivalent to an umrah. It is this dunya. It is this very dunya that we've been told after each salat you have a mustajab dua, a dua that is guaranteed to be answered. It is this dunya, agha. In this dunya, there's a sale. It is this dunya that has been said, if someone passes away in the holy month of Ramadan, they're absolutely forgiven. It is this dunya that they say, if you revive the Laylatul Qadr, if you understand the level of Laylatul Qadr, the status of Laylatul Qadr, and after that, it's as if you're reborn from your mother. It's the level of purification that belongs to this dunya. Things are easy here. Ad-dunya mazra'atul akhirah. This dunya is a farmland for the hereafter. What is the definition of a farmland? Everything is ready to be cultivated and planted. You plant one seed, it gives you a tree. Over there, everything is still. Standing still. There's no motion. Whatever you're carrying with yourself to the akhirah is whatever that you're taking from here. Becomes so difficult over there. There's so many stories from these people who are having the experiences of DNE, near-death experiences, NDEs. They tell us, Muslims or non-Muslims, it's interesting. Once they come back and they do tell their stories, they have a lot in common. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam says, everything is on sale on this dunya, right? He says, إِنِّي لَمْ أَرَ مِثْلَ الْجَنَّةِ نَامَ طَالِبُهَا. I have not seen, or I have never seen anything like paradise with its seekers sleeping or being in the state of heedlessness. إِنِّي لَمْ أَرَ مِثْلَ الْجَنَّةِ نَامَ طَالِبُهَا. The seeker of this heaven is sleeping in this dunya. We are so heedless and negligent about the heaven, as if, you know what, my entire concern is upgrading my car, getting that higher degree, raising my income, and expanding my material life. At the end of the day, if inshallah, if we get into heaven, that would be great. If not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows who has seen the hereafter. وَلَا كَالنَّارِ النَّامَ هَارِبُهَا. And I have not seen anything like hell with its actually the better translation would be نَامَ هَارِبُهَا. The person who is running away from this hellfire is sleeping. Oh, we are taking this dunya so seriously that we have totally forgotten about the greatest matter of our lives. And that is whether or not are we going to be the dwellers of the heaven, or are we deciding to be the dwellers of the hellfire? Inshallah, none of us be. Inshallah, none of us get even to spend 1 second in the hellfire. Nabi Isa, a beautiful narration from Prophet Jesus Christ alayhi salam. And I say alayhi salam, I don't say rahmatullahi alayhi. Why? Because there are so many ahadith that he is alive. Inshallah, he will return by the return of our beloved Imam. May Allah hasten the return and the reappearance of Prophet Isa, with which comes the return and the reappearance of our beloved Imam of time, inshallah. He says the hereafter and getting into the heaven is so important, is of such imperative value, that النوم على الحسير وأكل خبز الشعير في طلب الفردوس يسير. To sleep on a mat. Hasir is one of those mats that are made from straws of wood, right? It's nothing comfortable to sleep on, especially the hasir that was built back then. It was something that was difficult to sleep on. And eating the barley bread. Back in the day, barley bread, today they consider it to be healthy, right? Back in the day, it was the toughest type of bread. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam used to break the barley bread on his knee. This is a strong man. The one who removed the doors of Khaybar used to break the barley bread on his knees in order to be able to eat. And it was the cheapest, the least expensive of bread. Prophet Isa, he says, Jesus Christ says, he says, Prophet Jesus, that if you sleep on those mats and if you eat barley bread for the entirety of your life, في طلب الفردوس, في طلب الفردوس, seeking or in the quest of paradise, it's worth it. It's nothing. It is nothing. You're trying to increase the love for Jannah. You're trying to increase the enthusiasm for heaven. And then there comes a question. If you do that to us, then we become negligent about the life of this dunya. Right? You're like, then what is the point of this dunya? Let's stop working. Let's stop progressing. Let's stop acting upon our duties and sit aside and wait for the Jannah to come. Right? What's your answer to that? How does Islam answer to that? And that refers to the discussion we had while we were eating iftar. The difference between asceticism or zuhd and monasticism, which is rahbaniyah, as the Christianity has it, is this. It must be emphasized that Islam recommends asceticism and not monasticism. Why? Asceticism means distancing oneself from the luxuries and, more importantly, the attachment to the dunya. That is something difficult. That is something difficult. Islam wanted you to live a social life and be able to remain pious and in the state of zuhd and abstention. While if you lock up yourself into a room and imprison yourself and then not committing any sin, then you haven't done anything great, right? Live in the society, carry your social responsibilities, and then let's see how can you control yourself. Then let's see how can you cope with the life of dunya. How can you stop yourself from getting attached? While monasticism means completely withdrawing from life and abandoning social responsibilities. Once I was flying from Albany to Tucson, Arizona, last Ramadan, exactly last Ramadan. And as I was sitting before the gate that we get the jetway to the plane, two of these nuns came and sat in adjacency to me. And one of them, she was like in her 60s, maybe 70s. I said, we are working in the same field to her. And she said, what do you do, sir? I said, I'm a clergyman in Islam. She said, all right, nice to meet you. And I said, I've heard one thing about you guys, and that is you never get married. You never get married. She said, yeah, we never get married because we have sacrificed marriage for the cause of serving the religion. Right? Because marriage takes up your time, and that is something serious, right? Responsibilities that you might have as a mother, you're basically sacrificing your life raising children. You're sacrificing your life making income and providing for the family. I said, you know what? That is something that looks very great, but in Islam, we are not like that. We have to marry. We have to be able to uphold our social responsibilities as well as serving the cause of the deen. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. But that is the main difference, right? So if you're claiming that you are building your akhirah, or you're waiting to be a dweller of the heaven, and then you're abandoning your responsibility in this dunya, that is something totally unacceptable in Islam. Islam considers work and effort to earn a lawful livelihood not only permissible but obligatory. You can impose zuhd to yourself. I can impose myself zuhd to myself. But can I make my family starve? In fact, that was the work of Muawiyah. They told him, "Agha, life is getting difficult for us. The economic situation is very difficult." He said, "This is dunya. Work for the akhirah. Pray, inshallah, rain comes. Pray, inshallah, this happens. Pray, that happens." That's not Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam was imposing the most difficult life to himself while he was having the highest of income and contribution to the financial revenue of the country. As the person who was making a lot, his own life was with zuhd, but he was working day in and day out for the convenience of the people. Ibn Abil Hadid says, one of the narrators in Nahjul Balagha, they mention it. Ibn Abil Hadid says, even though he was not Shia, Ibn Abil Hadid was not a Shia. He says, I swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, back in those days, having water was a source of wealth. Just like having a gas station, imagine, right? Having a well that had water would provide for you, your family, and possibly a few generations after you. That's how precious water was back in the day. Ibn Abil Hadid says, and without any of these machines and mechanical instruments that we have nowadays, digging a well was a very difficult thing. Ibn Abil Hadid says, Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam went and started breaking the rocks and dig the well. And then the water was coming out of the well as a camel who was already like freshly beheaded, how blood flows out and rushes out. He says the water was flowing out like that. He says Amir al-Mu'minin, while he had dust and sweat from the hard work of digging this well, he says, bring me pen and paper. And he donated that well to the people of that region for the sake of the welfare of the people of that region. So if your family is suffering from some sort of difficulties, and you as the responsible of the family are referring everything to akhirah and not doing your work, in fact, you're not going to end up in heaven. You're going to have a VIP spot in Jahannam. Right? If someone is taking a leadership in an Islamic community center, in a masjid, in an Islamic society, takes a responsibility, has a position, and does not do anything, does not act upon his duties, is not caring for the pain of the people, that person is not going to end up in heaven. Guaranteed he's going to be in the midst of the hellfire. That is the difference. Therefore, the rights of people and social justice is something that we cannot forget about. Yeah, we are worrying about making it in the hereafter, but can we forget the dunya? Can we disconnect this dunya or separate this dunya from the hereafter? Yes, we do not want to be attached to this dunya, but at the same time, being detached from the dunya means leaving and abandoning the dunya? No. Live this dunya a normal life. But at the same time, to try your best not to be attached to the life of dunya. And that takes maintenance. That is not something that you achieve it once and then it's there. It's not like a degree. Even degrees nowadays, if you get a dental school degree, once after a while you have to go through some certain sort of classes. If you have a medical degree, you have to go through classes and trainings once in a while. If you're having an engineering degree, you have to renew your license once in a while, right? Then how come your faith and maintenance of this balance does not need renewal? It indeed needs it. Development and progress. If you stop working for your dunya, then human beings will not develop, will not have any progression. Do focus on the dunya, but have the akhirah in sight. Have it in your vision. Look at it. Make the balance between the world and the hereafter. It's all about intention and purpose, right? Sometimes I might do something, a virtue, something religious, and my intention is dunya, because I'm looking at the dunya. Sometimes I might do something very material, but my intention might be akhirah. This becomes an act of shirk and kufr. The other one becomes an act of ibadah, even though the appearance of it might look different, might seem to be the opposite. Our vision to death changes. When and how? After answering that doubt or question that might come to your mind in the previous slide, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, شوقوا أو شوقوا أنفسكم إلى نعيم الجنة. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, make your souls yearn for the bliss of paradise. And what happens? If you do that, تحب الموت, you will fall in love with death. You will not be scared of death anymore. شوقوا, enhance, master that enthusiasm in yourself, in your mindset, in your ideological system, in your belief system, about having the enthusiasm for the Jannah. And then what happens? Then you will love death. Then you will not be scared of death. Then you will not be afraid of death. One of the scholars was saying that I am so enthusiastic for the death to come to me and meet me, the same way as if someone is standing by the side of the road, his car is not functioning anymore, he's waiting for someone to give him a ride so that he can get to his destination on time. That is my shawq and enthusiasm for death. This is not a word of someone who has failed in the life of this dunya and is committing suicide or want to get rid of the problems in this dunya. Rather, it's the words of someone who has succeeded in the phases of the life of this dunya. Have you heard what Amir al-Mu'min alayhi salam said the moment the sword fell on his head? He says, فُزْتُ بِرَبِّ الْكَعْبَةِ. Indeed, indeed I am victorious. This is a call of a victorious man. Wow. It's been said that on the very final moments of the life of Amir al-Mu'min alayhi salam, people around him were weeping. And then Amir al-Mu'min alayhi salam told those people, those companions, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, everyone, to the Zainabain salamullah alayhima, if you had seen what I am seeing right now, you wouldn't be weeping. They said, Agha, what are you seeing? He said, I see Rasulullah is sitting next to me. Lady Fatima Zahra is sitting next to me. And we are enjoying from the bliss of paradise. If you had seen what I'm seeing right now, or if we knew what is going to be waiting for us in Jannah. It's been said that people from far away, those who are making their way towards Jannah in the hereafter, from far away, once the smell of Jannah comes to them, they say, even if they don't take us to the Jannah, that smell is sufficient for us. How can we describe that in words? Imam Sajjad alayhi salam says, Sallallahu Muhammad, describing the situation of Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba alayhi salam in his salat. I think I will, inshallah, maybe finish with this slide. Yeah, and we'll let the other two hadith for tomorrow night, because we're going to recite Dua Kumail, inshallah. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam says, see, if someone has the akhirah insight, has the hereafter insight, is having the enthusiasm for getting into Jannah. It says, كان إمام المجتبى عليه السلام إذا قام في صلاته ترتعد فرائصه. When he stood for prayer, his limbs would tremble. He was shivering in salat. And when he mentioned paradise and hell, وكان إذا ذكر الجنة والنار اضطرب اضطراب السليم. This is a wonderful hadith. He would be agitated like someone stung or afflicted by a snake. He was shaking like this. اضطرب اضطراب السليم. Salim means someone who's been hit by a snake. Why? Ya Mawlai, what are you seeing? And then us, we are so negligent. When we recite the Holy Quran, it talks about Jannah, we look at it as a fairy tale. When it talks about the Jahannam, we look at it as a fairy tale. We think when the Holy Quran talks about the Mu'mineen, we are possibly part of them or one of them. Or it's talking about a group of people that, existed in the beginning of Islam. When it talks about Mushrikeen and Kuffar, this book is referring to the people of the early Islam. It's been said that do you know what is a true recitation of the Holy Quran? Is that every verse of the Holy Quran that you recite, you think that it is addressing you. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about Jahannam, it's been said that the true believers would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever this is, O Allah, do not make me fall into it. When that verse is talking about the Jannah, say, Oh Allah, whatever is this, make me one of the dwellers of this place. Make dua. There are many places that dua is accepted. One of them is after you recite Holy Quran. It's one of the places that has been recommended for you to make dua. And this is the best dua. Yes, ask for a good wife, ask for a successful journey in your education, ask for a good job and occupation, all of that. These are the little sweetnesses of this dunya. But if you do not ask for success in the hereafter, then the malaika and the angels will look at you and will laugh at you. Says, Was'alullah al-Jannah. Anytime he was praying, Imam Mushtaba alayhi salam, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he was asking after his salat, Was'alullah al-Jannah, he was asking for heaven. Imam Mushtaba alayhi salam was asking, وَتَعَوَّذَ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ النَّارِ, and he was seeking refuge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the hellfire. I'll do the very first one. He says, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله اللهم صل على محمد وآله إذا صلى العبد, when a servant prays, ولم يسأل الله تعالى الجنة, and does not ask after his salat is over, does not ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make me one of the dwellers of the heaven. Because see, this is one of the good du'as. Why? Because when you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make you to be a dweller of Jannah, what happens? All of your life journey will be set towards that goal. Then whatever happens to you will take you to that goal. It's one of the broader du'as, one of the broader prayers. Like, it covers everything. Sometimes you say, Oh Allah, make khair for me in this little decision that I am having to make. Right? Sometimes you say, Oh Allah, make me one of the dwellers of Jannah. Do you understand the difference? You're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a route change in your path, in your journey of life. وَلَمْ يَسْتَعِذْهُ مِنَ النَّارِ, and does not seek refuge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the hellfire. قَالَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, the angels will say, أَقْفَلَ الْعَظِيمَتَيْنِ الْجَنَّةِ وَالنَّارِ. The malaika and the angels are like, what the nonsense is this guy doing? He's going heedless in regards to his most important needs, getting into the heaven and not falling into the hellfire. He's forgetting those foremost and highest of importance of matters that he's having to face. He has neglected the two great matters, paradise and the fire. That's why when you recite Dua Joshan Kabir on the Laylatul Qadr, you say, Subhanaka ya la ilaha illa ant, al-Qawth, al-Qawth, khalisna min an-nar ya Rab. The contrary to this is, or another meaning to this is, make me the dweller of the heaven. Khalisna, free us from the hellfire. On the most important night of your life, Laylatul Qadr, you recite this dua and you call upon Allah by 1,000 names. And then what is the request that you have in this entire dua? Khalisna min an-nar ya Rab. Free me from the chains of the hellfire. Right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us and grant us a freedom and liberty from the chains of hellfire in this dunya and in the hereafter. And may Allah make us to be the dwellers of heaven, in the heaven of this dunya, in the heaven of barzakh, and in the final destination, in the Jannah, inshaAllah. For the health and well-being of our Imam of Time, please recite a salawat.